Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending the Urban League of Portland's Meet the Candidate Forum for Multnomah County Commissioner District 1 and 3. My name is Julia Delgado. I'm the Vice President of the Urban League of Portland, and I'm going to be moderating tonight. Before we get started, I always want to just thank all of our supporters and community partners for helping put this event together and our amazing team. Tonight, we're going to feature candidates that are running for County Commissioner for both District 1 and District 3. So for District 1, we have Kevin Fitz, Chris Henry, Megan Moyer, and Margot Wheeler. And then for County Commissioner District 3, we have Commissioner Julia Brim Edwards and TJ Noddings. So all candidates were invited, just to be clear, but just either scheduling conflicts or logistical issues, or they just declined to participate. So that's just to be clear, it wasn't a select few. And so candidates are here to highlight their campaign proposals and kind of speak to questions that are related to our community and constituency. So candidates have received this in advance, but just to recap for our viewers, for tonight's event, we're going to do opening statements and questions that come, kind of community-driven questions, and then closing statements. We're going to start in alphabetical order and then kind of rotate. That's so that everybody has an opportunity to go first and I guess go last. We'll always start with District 1 and then do District 3. That's just so that it's not confusing about what office you're running for. We hope the forum will be exciting and informative, but we really want it to be orderly and respectful. So any defamatory, abusive, profane, threatening, offensive, or hate speech is obviously strictly prohibited. Candidates that engage in any type of behavior like that will be removed from the forum. And here are the ground rules again that you received in advance, but just to remind everybody, we're asking you to remain muted if you're not answering a question. That's important for audio, but it's also important for video focus. Our partners at Open Signal make this look really excellent, and the muting is essential to that. Please don't forget that. Each candidate is going to have 1 minute for their opening statements, and we'll ask you to do it. I'll call your name. I'll say, so-and-so, please begin. And then when questions are asked, you'll have 2.5 minutes to respond. There's no rebuttals. This isn't a debate. This is a forum. So it's not use your 2 minutes to talk about your positions, not go back to the previous person. We're going to ask 4 questions, time permitting. If it's going to be a problem to ask all 4 questions, we'll notify you. I'm going to drop the questions in the chat so that you have them there. After all the questions are done, each candidate is going to have 2.5 minutes to deliver a closing statement. So be courteous and conscientious throughout. Timing is really important throughout the forum. If you're speaking, when you're within 30 seconds, there's going to be a notice in the chat. So just have the chat up and we'll send you a notification if there's 30 seconds remaining. If you go over time, we'll let you know time's up. If you keep talking, we'll have to mute you. And it's really awkward. We don't like to do it. It's awkward for you. It's awkward for the fellow candidate who feels like they're interrupting. So please just be conscientious of the time. We know these are really important issues. And that you're not gonna be able to say everything about these important policy positions in that time, but please just be conscientious, just wrap it up. So those rules are clear, and we're just gonna jump right into opening statements. Again, you have 1 minute to just introduce yourselves to our viewers, to our constituency. We're gonna start with District 1, and I'm gonna say we're gonna go Kevin Fitz, Chris Henry, Megan Moyer, and Margot Wheeler. And I'm going to say your name before it's your turn to talk, so you don't have to remember that order. And then we'll go District 3, Commissioner Brim Edwards and TJ Noddings, and I'll say your name when it's time to speak. So right now, Kevin Fitz, it is your turn for opening statements. Please begin.
Very good. Good evening. My name is Kevin Fitz, and my pronouns are he, him, and his. I'm a native Oregonian. I'm running for County Commissioner, District 1. I'm running because I'm a passionate public advocate, mental health clinician, and program builder and developer of community service for people who struggle with substance use and behavioral health issues. I've worked in this field for almost 35 years. I want to help provide solutions to the challenge that is the behavioral health houseless crisis that exists in Portland. I have a track record of legislative successes, creating jobs at the top of Multnomah County's Behavioral Health Division, changing Medicaid, or what they call in Oregon, coordinated care contracts to benefit consumers, and consistently, no matter what else I'm doing, always advocating for individuals who struggle with disability or in poverty or seniors. In fact, right before I got off this phone, before I signed on here,
Thank you, Kevin. We're
Was
out of
I
time.
on mute the whole?
No, you talked for the minute and then the timer automatically muted you. And again, it's awkward. This is just an awkward reminder of please be mindful of the chat. So that was your minute. Thank you so much, Kevin. Chris Henry, now it is your turn.
Okay. Hi, I'm Chris Henry. I'm 60 years old. I was a truck driver for many years. Right now, I was laid off after 20 years with the company, or actually, I was close to 20 years, and my anniversary was 2 days ago. It would have been 20 years. So I'm kind of trying to do things sort of semi-retired, not drive semis. So I've run for office before. Oh, really? 60 seconds. Wow. Okay. I've run for office before, and I'm running for Multnomah County to, um, again, get the issues out there. And yeah, that's about it.
Thank you so much, Chris Henry. Megan Moyer, it's your turn. You have 1 minute. It starts now.
Hi, my name is Megan Moyer. I use she, her pronouns. I am currently the Public Policy Director at Disability Rights Oregon, but I have spent my career fighting for social justice issues. And I'm running because my area of passion and focus is delivering services to our most vulnerable Oregonians. And that's what the county does. And I feel like we need to be more efficient and more effective. And I want to bring my 20 years of experience on building human services programs to the county so that we're able to serve those who are most in need.
Thank you so much, Megan Moyer. And Margot Wheeler, it's now your turn. Your time starts now.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Margot. I'm a problem solver, and I'm running because I have a lot of institutional knowledge from working within Treasury for Multnomah County. I'm a project manager, but I've also been a consultant for 10 years. I enjoy going into businesses and organizations, finding out what's wrong, fixing it, and making sure that those results are measured. I have a background in finance and data analytics. I think that brings a lot to this position to bring more accountability and transparency to both spending and for outcomes of programs. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Margot Wheeler. So we're moving on now to District 3. So Commissioner Brim Edwards, it's now your turn, and your term starts now.
Good evening. I'm Julia Brim Edwards. Thanks for having me. I've served 11 months of a partial term for the Multnomah County Commission, and the county is moving forward, and there's still more work to be done, which is why I'm running for a full 4-year term. I grew up, went to school, have lived for about 50 years in Southeast Portland. I love this community and I really care about it, which is why I'm running for a county commission, why I'm running again for a county commission seat. It's having great challenges right now, and I feel my skills, expertise, and experience can be put to use, and I think I put them to use the last 11 months, and I'm looking forward to another term to really move our community forward on the big 3 issues, which is homelessness, behavioral health, and public safety. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Brim Edwards. And TJ Noddings, is now your turn, and your time starts now.
Thank you so much. Hi, I'm TJ Noddings. I'm a housing case manager and a housing organizer here in Portland, and I'm also a working class renter like half of our county. And I'm running for the commissioner seat in District 3 because, quite frankly, I am really angry that our county has not made much movement when it comes to the cost of living crisis and the homelessness crisis that we're facing. And I know that that's top of mind for most of the people that live here. We release plans every year that don't go anywhere. We don't meet our goals. And in my professional work as a housing case manager, I see every day where we're failing our homeless residents. We aren't funding enough vouchers. Half of all of our renters in this county are paying more than they can afford in rent, and our county has never put forth a plan to address our cost of living crisis or to bring our rent prices down. And I think that's absolutely what we need to do to solve our homelessness crisis and keep the people that are housed right now. So I think we need local rent control, and I'd love to bring a working class perspective to the board.
Thanks so much, TJ Nodding. So those are all of our opening statements. Thanks very much for that. And we're being real serious about that mute button. So please keep in mind and mindful of the chat. So we're going to just move on to questions right now. I'll say your name when it's your turn to speak. So Recently, Multnomah County residents experienced climate and environmental disasters like that Kmart fire, heat waves, and ice storms. Communities of color often face disproportionate exposure to environmental hazards and pollution. How will you advocate for environmental justice policies to address these disparities? Kevin Fitz, your time starts now.
Very good. This is an important issue. It touches home to me. I live in a low-income apartment, and my neighbor during this heat dome 2 or 3 summers ago died in his low-income apartment because the property managers did not install air conditioning, nor did they put any alerts out to the community that there was a cooling center in the community room. I see it all the time. Individuals that are from marginalized cultures, individuals struggle with disabilities and poverties. The challenge is whether they're on public benefits or use public housing, making sure that their needs are getting met around this. It's a huge problem. And this was just one of many individuals who are receiving public services and end up not getting their needs met. This is crucially important. One of the first things I want to do when and if I become county commissioner is I want to put an outwardly facing billboard or website to say how many evictions happened this week and what can we do at Multnomah County to prevent any more evictions in the following week. And I'm serious about that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kevin Fitz. Chris Henry, it's your turn and your time begins now.
Thank you. One place that we're not looking and we should be looking at are basically pollution in the inner city from trucks. I'm a truck driver, and what we are is Oregon's a dirty dumping ground for dirty diesel trucks. And I believe that right now they're running an initiative for Clean Air Portland, Clean Air Oregon, and they keep trying to get that on the ballot. I'm looking to gather signatures for that. One thing that we need, when I worked for Yellow Freight, we got rid of a lot of our old trucks, and we got trucks with particulate filters, and they were clean air certified through California. Washington has done the same thing with their clean air standards. Oregon should follow suit. With that, also the climate change. I was the Green Party chair for 2 terms. So from 2004 to 2008, I was on the National for 4 years. Then I switched to the Progressive Party. My focus would be on, I helped to get marijuana passed, but what I wanted was industrial hemp. And I think we should be shifting away from cutting down our forests and parting them out to clear cuts to farming industrial hemp. I believe it was just delisted industrial hemp in 2018, I think it was, as federally restricted. So perhaps we should be shifting all of our resources to that. So I think with those 2 issues, I think fires, basically what we should be doing is we should be paying the loggers to haul the bales of hemp to market. And there's a way you could do that and put bins on the back of the trucks instead of logs. With that, there are other places we could look, and we should be producing hemp and getting jobs in the inner city.
Okay, thanks so much, Chris Henry. Now, Megan Moyer, it's your turn and your time starts now.
Sure, I think that the county has 2 different approaches that I think are really important to address these issues. One from a public health perspective, and then one from a weatherization and economic justice perspective. So from the public health perspective, Multnomah County is our public health authority, and with that has a lot of ability to set policy from pollution to emissions to risk of natural disaster. I have some real concerns about our history of continuing to endanger low income and communities of color with, you know, what we allow on our freight lines, where we allow the storage of dangerous materials, who would be exposed if our tank farms were to collapse during an earthquake. And I think it's time that we look at some of these past policies from an economic justice perspective. I mean, also you can look at where we built I-5 historically and what that has done related to diesel particulates and other air quality issues. So I do commend Multnomah County for taking that seriously, and I would continue to support the policies that they have set forward. The thing I think has been lacking is the accountability on those programs. We're not measuring if they're working. And that's an issue for me, because I don't know how we can move the needle forward without being able to say, like, this is what we've accomplished with our there's a program to help diesel engine for convert to a cleaner fuel. I've looked to try to find how effective has that been, how many people have taken it, where have we moved the needle. So there's an accountability issue. The other is, again, we need to be providing weatherization and other important services to low-income communities at no cost. It's both beneficial to the environment, it's beneficial to the life and safety of individuals. This needs to be something that we're investing in, both to meet our green energy goals, but also because our climate is changing and we need people to be safe in their homes.
Thank you, Megan Moyer. Margot Wheeler, now it's your turn and your time starts now.
Thank you. So first of all, I would take the approach of making sure that there's ongoing open communication with all communities and all individuals that need assistance from Multnomah County or other regional government agencies. Multnomah County does currently allocate resources, but does so fairly inefficiently. Megan mentioned energy and weatherization, which is in the Department of Human Services. There is a lack of accountability and capturing metrics. One metric that has failed to be accounted for accurately is culturally specific programs. Multnomah County is not diligent in making sure that their databases are capturing that in a consistent manner across all departments. And so that's where I would come in and standardize that and make sure that culturally specific programs are being identified so we can target those and make sure that they're being effective in the communities that we're trying to help. I think that it's really important to measure those results, both through getting feedback of the more qualitative, but also making sure that those data analytics are captured in a quantitative manner that Multnomah County is frankly a bit sloppy on right now. So I'd like to tighten up the operations, make sure that we're capturing data so we can measure those results. Right now within the county, I'm working on the Inflation Reduction Act, clean energy credits, and working with the Office of Sustainability. So making sure that they have access to additional funding, that they're making sure that their projects are qualifying, and ensuring that those resources are going to the communities most in need. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Margot Wheeler. So we're moving on to District 3 now. Same question, Commissioner Brim Edwards, your time starts now.
Thank you. Well, climate change and resiliency is a really significant issue in District 3. And that's particularly so because 82nd Avenue and 205 run the entire sort of north-south length of the district. And what that means is we have these huge concrete masses that just run north-south, and there's very little tree canopy. And what that results in is that people living near 82nd or 205, the extreme weather events have a disproportionate impact on those communities. In addition, those are communities that are generally have lower incomes, where we have very diverse communities living, fewer resources to weatherize their homes. So there's a whole host of things that I've been working on and advocating for to address that specifically in District 3. One, to build out the tree canopy. If you look at Washington, the west side of of the county. It's there's a lot of tree canopy. It's cooler in the summer. It's warmer in the winter. So building out the tree canopy, more public transportation or climate friendly transportation infrastructure. So that could be bike lanes, ways for people to walk, not just counting on cars. We also I've been an advocate of continuing to electrify the county operations. And also to build out climate resiliency. So for individuals who can't afford it, making sure they have AC during, again, prior to the extreme weather events and also weatherization. The Kmart fire, that's just right across the district from District 3. It's in actually District 2. But there's a lot of things we can be doing around that. As Megan said, the county's the local health authority, and we should be setting expectations for particulate, for what types of businesses. In that particular case, they're putting in a warehouse that will have distributions, and we can regulate things like idling and others. So lots of things the county can do on that.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Brim Edwards. TJ Noddings, it's your turn and your time starts now.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I would say that with this place we are in our current climate crisis, the county needs to be extremely aggressive when it comes to environmental policy. To Megan's point, we have companies like Zenith Fuel coming through and storing and dumping crude oil in our city. And I encourage anyone that is interested in this to read about Zenith Oil. They're currently looking to expand some of their storage of others similarly disastrous and polluting fuels. We know that the people that are most affected by climate change and by dirty air are our poorest residents, and particularly our homeless residents. Oregon has some of the worst rates of unsheltered homelessness in the entire country. 2/3 of all of the 11,000 homeless folks that are in our county are living on the streets, and they're the ones that are the first to die, quite frankly, when it comes to the extreme weather that we face both in the winter with freezing temperatures and over the summer with extreme heats. 2 summers ago, Portland region saw 110-degree days, and there's tons of folks living on the street with absolutely nowhere to go. We know that during our most recent freeze in January, we saw our warming shelters close when temperatures rose to 34 degrees because that was the policy, and folks were forced back onto the street, still in the snow, still in freezing temperatures. Oftentimes, because they had gone into the shelter and weren't able to store their things, they were left now with even fewer warming capabilities like blankets and tents than they had going into the shelter. And we need to do much, much better for them. We know that many of the renters in this county, and particularly low-income renters, are living in apartments that actually don't meet our warrant of habitability. They don't have the cooling and warming temperature capabilities that they need to actually meet the requirements to be considered habitable. And yet renters fear challenging their landlords, asking for code inspections, asking for the things that they need to actually be healthy in the homes that they do have. One thing that I really like to see is that in Tacoma, Washington last November, they passed a really great renters bill of rights. And one of the things that they passed was a ban on evictions during extreme weather events for late payment of rent. So if you're late on rent and it's freezing out or it's extremely hot and deadly, you can't be evicted for late rent. And it's more solutions like that I'd like to see here in Multnomah.
Thank you so much, TJ. Thank you to all of the candidates for answering that question. We're moving on to question 2. So House Bill 4002 recently recriminalized drugs in Oregon, reversing certain provisions of Measure 110. HB 4002 success is dependent upon the creation and implementation of a deflection program opted in by the county. How will you minimize the impact of communities of color in this deflection program? And we're going to start now with Chris Henry. So Chris Henry, your time starts now.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know that I really agree with it being recriminalized, but I do understand it. I was attacked downtown by a homeless person, and on a walk, I saw 2 responses. I went to Luklac Vietnamese restaurant to get a $4 bowl of beef broth, and there's a guy who was just covered with his own feces rolling in the doorway, and he was having an episode. And then I decided it closed down because of that. So I went across to another place to get a bowl of something, and found a place. And as I'm passing another guy, he's just staring at the sky, looking around, and kind of stumbling into me. On my way back, there's a guy who just completely tanked, and the fire squad was there responding to him. So it's a serious issue. I think that it needs to be looked at, with without blanketing everyone with the same brush, and painting with the same brush. And with that, I would look more closely at how we're doing it. I would want accountability within the system, and probably do the same thing with that. Is I would want to see some numbers and some statistics on what's going on with the program. And yeah, for that, I think I would probably want to delve more deeply into the data, and definitely make sure that I ran for attorney general on police accountability, and I think I would focus through this office on the same, with the same zeal. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris Henry. And now Megan Moyer, it's your turn and your time begins now.
Sure. So I did some work on House Bill 4002 during the short session at my job with Disability Rights Oregon. And specifically, my area of concern was, what was deflection going to actually be, and who was going to get caught up in this and not actually get the access to care that they need. And that is, that has really now been dropped on counties in a way that I didn't agree with. I really felt like the legislature did not adequately fund the treatment that needs to be closely associated with deflection. All House Bill 4002 does is it says that you now have to go to 2 meetings, one at the point of arrest and another at a follow-up date, in which they will do an assessment and then hopefully connect you to service. But there was absolutely not enough funding, nor do we have the time frame to get a treatment system in place by the time this is implemented. And who I think is going to get most negatively impacted is, if I'm somebody with a dual diagnosis, I have a serious mental illness and I have a substance use disorder, and I am picked up and arrested. One, I think it is very challenging to be able to show up to that second appointment. So I'm going to get a warrant for my arrest. I'm not really sure that that's what we wanted to do, was put people in jail because they have a substance use disorder and currently untreated mental illness. Second, let's say I take somebody up on that treatment. Right now in the metro area, there is no place for me to go if I have both a serious mental illness and polysubstance use disorder. So, I have real criticism of what the legislature dropped on counties. And I think it is going to be a tremendous effort that needs to be put in place to build an appropriate treatment options for people so that we can actually offer treatment on demand. And I think people don't understand what an undertaking that is from where we are today. It's a 2 to 3 day wait for men to get into detox. We don't really even have appropriate settings for long-term inpatient.
Sorry, your time is up. Thank you, Megan. I'm sorry. Thank you for your response. And now Margot Wheeler, it's your turn. Your time starts now.
Thank you. Again, I'm going to go back to capturing statistics. We need to be monitoring outcomes, but also monitoring who we are serving. Are we enforcing disproportionately against different communities? Are we not serving different communities? And we need to address that. And the only way that we can do that is to have valid, accurate, up-to-date statistics on where money is being spent and what's happening. I previously worked for the Portland Defense Consortium, which is an indigent defense firm. So helped, very much saw the cyclical nature of low-level drug crimes, possession. Some individuals would have 50 charges for a single drug. and it just churned them through the legal system, and people don't realize the cost to that, not only for the individual, but to taxpayers and all the people that work the services or work in court systems as well. There needs to be a treatment focus. Strictly using an law enforcement method does not stop the problem. It gets them out off the streets for a number of hours, maybe a day, but it does not serve those people whatsoever, and it just costs taxpayers money. We need to be focusing on wraparound services, both for mental health treatment, addiction services, job connections, training, all the things that lead to drug addiction and suffering on the streets. If we're not addressing those issues and we're just using legal law enforcement, we're just creating a giant judicial system that benefits literally no one. So I would like to see more expansion, more data on where money's going. And we also have stop court. We've had a drug court that is meant to divert people out of the judicial system, and it's not up to snuff to connect people with the different services they need. Multnomah County is huge, very broad organization. We need to be connecting all those pieces to make sure we're giving a comprehensive solution to individuals that need assistance from our community. I think that I'm a strong data analytics person, and I really want to focus on where money's being spent and how we can provide better outcomes for individuals in our community.
Thank you, Margot. And now Kevin Fitz, it's your turn and your time starts now.
I'm sorry, can you restate the question again?
I'd be delighted to. It's not a problem. So House Bill
very good.
4002 recently recriminalized drugs in Oregon, and that reversed provisions of Measure 110. But HB 4002 success is dependent upon the creation and implementation of these deflection programs that will be opted into by the county, so the county will control. How will you minimize the impact of these deflection programs on communities of color?
Very good. And how much time do I have? 2 minutes?
2.5, but maybe your
2.5.
time, yeah, somebody else's timing. I don't.
Oh, okay. Very good. First of all, I did not vote for Measure 110, not because I didn't like the ideal of keeping individuals out of the criminal justice system or struggling with addiction, substance use disorder. Great idealism, perfect idea. Our system was not ready for it. The system was broken, cratered, not enough beds, not enough staff. Terrible idea. I knew it was going to be a mess. They moved this back, as you know, as I said, they turned these from citations into misdemeanors. It all depends on how willing the police are going to go out and hand out misdemeanor tickets across the city of Portland. I understand the desire for some people to make some of this criminal, but we do not have the manpower, the staff force to go around, and I don't think this deflection program is going to work the way it's promised. There's too many choke points. I introduced something that I thought was middle of the road. I have a chip on my shoulder that individuals that struggle with poverty and low income have a very difficult time getting the laws that they want to change, getting attention. I introduced a bill, and everybody please look it up, HB 2641. What it does, an individual who has substance use disorder gets applied to the same way an individual who's struggling with psychosis or suicide. Civil commitment, a person with substance use disorder who meets civil criteria. For civil commitment, a person with mental health disorder. I, as an unpaid lobbyist, wrote that bill. My organization edited, wrote that bill, and we submitted it to 2023 regular session right before the session where they introduced 4002. It's not going to work to criminalize this stuff. We don't have a police. We don't have enough jail beds. It gets way too confusing. We're having very difficult challenges with staffing and our district attorneys. I don't think it's going to work. We need to have a better system that has effective services and ports and treatment that works, and we're going down the wrong path. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin Fitz. Now we're moving on to District 3 and TJ Noddings. It's now your turn and your time starts now.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that the repeal of Measure 110 is an absolute disaster. We know exactly what's going to happen because it's what's happened all the decades leading up to when we passed decriminalization. And it's the same thing that's happened in all of our neighboring states that never had decriminalization in the first place. We know that we're going to see more arrests of poor folks that are facing addiction. We know that Black folks in our county are vastly overrepresented in our homeless population and in our incarcerated population. We know that they're going to be the targets of the police and the sheriff's department. When it comes to diversion, because this is the situation right now that Measure 110 has been repealed, we need to do everything in our power to create those diversion programs. I know that my opponent, Commissioner Brim Edwards, is the one that's been responsible for writing the 24-hour drop-off center, sobering center plan. It'll add its first beds, 15 beds a year from now. I think we need to do more between now and then because we're going to have a year of really no diversion options other than the very few detox beds that are around, and folks are going to be incarcerated for that. And as Portlanders like to say, we need house keys, not more sweeps and more incarceration. I think that we need to approach this from a housing first perspective. Folks aren't gonna, like Megan was saying, be able to meet their appointments if they're living on the street, being sweeped, and having violent interactions with the police. But if we can get people housed, they're gonna have a much better chance of engaging with treatment programs and improving their conditions. I think we need to divert more funding to programs that work without involving police, like our Portland Street Response, like TriMet's rider ambassador programs, so that we can lead with services instead of punitive forces. And we need to focus on the root causes of addiction and poverty in our county. We don't need more criminalization. We need to actually get people into houses and have people have enough income to improve their material conditions so that they're not stuck in the position that they're in now. We need more peer support, more behavioral health for professionals. We need to actually supply the treatment centers that were always promised as part of Measure 110 and we never delivered on. And now we've repealed it before we really ever got to make good on that. We don't have the public defenders even to really be able to handle the influx of cases that we're going to see here. So as county commissioner, I would direct our sheriff's department to do everything they can to absolutely deprioritize making any arrests related to substance use in the wake of Measure 4002 and put our funding towards treatment like we have always meant to do and just have not actually implemented.
Thank you, TJ. Commissioner Brim Edwards, it's now your turn and your time starts now.
Thanks. I think it's important to note that the state's going to need to continue to send out the funding that came with ballot Measure 110, so 300 million in grants. That really has an important role in it. I don't think has had an opportunity to really have the effect that was intended. So diverse organizations can use those funds to support those needing peer supports, housing, harm reduction, a whole host of things. The county also, as Megan noted, this kind of got dropped on the county of defining deflection, and that's going to happen over the next couple months. From what I've heard from the county and also just the state leaders involved, deflection, there's going to be many opportunities to have off ramps to get out, keep people out of the criminal justice system. And one of the things that I'm working on that TJ mentioned is, and this was even before any of the work happened on HB 4002, which is standing up a 24/7 sobering center. And really this can be, and we've talked to first responders, this can be a deflection resource to have somebody who is on the street severely intoxicated, needs a place to go for their own safety, but also for community safety, that this will be a deflection resource. And again, not a deflection into jail. Second, in the county budget and also in the city budget, we need to be advocating for more non-law enforcement responses, whether that's funding for the Portland Street Response or Project Respond, two very important non-law enforcement responses. And then third, the county needs to work closely with the state and also providers to build out both the withdrawal management and the treatment and recovery housing. And we should be doing that with culturally responsive organizations. And finally, it's absolutely essential we collect data about who is being captured in the deflection, about who has access to treatment, who has access to withdrawal management, who has access to recovery housing, because that's going to tell us whether we're having disproportionate impacts at any point in the way. And then based on that, if there's disproportionate impacts, we need to address that.
Thanks very much, Commissioner Brim Edwards. And now we're moving on to question 3. In Multnomah County, unconditional cash transfer pilots like the Multnomah Mothers Trust, which have demonstrated their effectiveness as a poverty reduction tool, were recently defunded. Do you believe that pilots such as this should be funded? And if so, explain why this would be a budget priority and how you would secure funding. So Megan, we're starting with Megan Moyer, and Megan Moyer, your time begins now.
Yeah, I am a believer that people do better without having tremendous strings attached to the needed supports. And so I am disappointed that we're not continuing these type of cash assistance programs. I think a lot about how many hoops somebody has to juggle in order to access SNAP, in order to access TANF, these are all food assistance. If you need a rent assistance, it becomes a full-time job for an individual. And I really think a lot of that comes from a very pejorative view of poverty, as if poverty is the result of individual choices and not a direct result of the structure of an economy. And I just fundamentally believe that if people were given cash assistance without strings attached, it is a far more effective way of preventing loss of housing, keeping families stable. And it's all of the rules and regulations that we put on these things that make it very difficult to really fully see the benefit. One, it takes a lot of the money out of these programs to add all of the, work requirements and monitoring. And, in Oregon, we don't drug test, but in other states they do. And from somebody who believes in social justice, I fundamentally believe that, one, it's ludicrous that Oregon taxes our poorest working individuals. Poor people need to keep their own money. I strongly support a child tax credit. I'm so sad the federal government did not continue the thing that had the biggest impact to reduce child poverty in over 50 years. And we lost that. And that's so sad. But I do want Oregon to seriously consider those type of programs. And I don't know what Multnomah County can and cannot afford based on our population shift and our tax base. But I really am a proponent of providing aid to families as direct stipends and not cumbersome administrative programs, because I think it's inefficient and I think it is deeply paternalistic.
Thanks very much, Margot Wheeler. And is that right? Yeah. And then, I'm sorry. Now I got confused in my script, both. Thank you very much, Margot Wheeler. And now Kevin Fitz, it's your turn and your time starts now.
Sorry, that was just
No,
Megan.
that is, you're right. It is, I knew that. I was like, I'm sorry, I moved my screen. I'm sorry. Margot, it is your turn and your time starts now. My bad.
Thank you. So working in Treasury, I have a unique perspective seeing where money is going to, and we can see what it's been spent on. One thing that I've been greatly disappointed by the county is the let's get cash out of the door and we'll figure out what it's going to later. I think they need to be much more methodical on what it's going to, how it's being delivered, and not just buying bulk Visa gift cards and handing them out like they're raffle tickets. We cannot measure results if we don't know where money is going and what it's intended for. We have not accurately accounted for rent assistance, especially across the departments, which has resulted in significant fraud and dollars being reduced for other people that need it. The most important thing is accountability, so we serve the most people we can in the most efficient way. We also need to make sure that what we're doing is effective. If we don't know where money is going and it's just open, free cash with no oversight from the county, we can't measure how effective it is in communities. So there needs to be more case management for people receiving Multnomah County dollars, making sure that we're providing what they need as much as they need or as little as they need. That helps Multnomah County manage how they allocate their budget. That is incredibly important. The lack of accountability, again, with the Visa gift cards, We in Treasury had gift cards stolen, so we hold where they are being spent. There is a significant misuse of dollars where it's going where it's not intended. Recipients aren't getting what they need. So we need to have more accountability on dollars spent, more contact with individuals receiving dollars, so that we're also making sure that we have enough services for them. Maybe it's not just dollars, maybe they need additional services, and only proper case management is going to move the needle for those individuals. And we have to have a very individualized approach for each person, because they might have one need, they might have many needs. And if Multnomah County isn't capturing that data, they can't effectively serve the population.
Thank you very much, Margot, and I apologize. I was the M name. I apologize. So now Kevin Fitz, it's your turn. Do you want me to read the question again, or can you see it in the chat?
No, I got it here. Very good. Very good. Just like me, make a general comment. What is the goal of the campaign, or my goal of my campaign is a positive name recognition in the voters' minds. So that's what I'm here for. Unfortunately, on this question, I am a little stumped because I'm not familiar with the Multnomah Mothers Trust. I take your word for it. Your organization claims they had effectiveness, but I would like to see some more analysis about it. Generally, I'm in favor of programs that help support and move people out of poverty. I don't know enough about this program to tell you whether or not it should be refunded. I don't know. Generally, I have an issue with Multnomah County, but it's mostly with its larger contractors. In no bid, I'm in favor of transparency and accountability and competitive bids for contracts. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know enough about to make any informed comment about this. So thank you.
Thank you. Succinct. Now, I want to get this wrong now. It's Chris. Thank you, Kevin. And now Chris Henry, your turn, and your time starts now.
Thank you. I'm not familiar with the program either, but I do understand, like in Seattle, it's sort of a cross application of giving people money. They have a program for voting where they give out democracy dollars. They'll give out $100 and people get to use that, and you can vote on things, or pass it on to candidates, the candidate that you wish to run. There are ways that we can get money to people to use. I was a single parent, and I needed to go to school. I utilized the YWCA, but it was nice to have the resource. I think that, like Megan had brought up, the tax credit or tax benefit. If there was, I would support that, and also support some way to get people the money they need for things such as, I'm a grandfather now, and my daughter, I would continue to pay child support up until when she was like 26. She's now 28, and she works at the LA County Superior Court, because her mom did that. And so she took college and got in there, but diapers were a huge thing. There are things that families need that that SNAP isn't going to pay for, provide for them. And I think maybe that is a program that we should look at, how to fund it. I would say maybe create a Multnomah County bank and pull our money back from Wall Street, and the money that you would save from floating bonds on Wall Street and paying organizations like huge corporations like BlackRock, who dips into PERS, and other governments. So they've got their tentacles in everywhere. I would say, create a Multnomah County public bank.
Great. Thank you very much for all of these commissioners, and now for these candidates for District 1. And now we're moving on to District 3, same question. And we're going to begin on this one with Commissioner Brim Edwards. Your time starts now.
Thank you. So I joined the county commission last June, 4 days before the budget passed. And it's my understanding that last year the funds were in the county budget to support, I believe it's 100 mothers in the program. And it was a program that came out of the Multnomah County Idea Lab. And they had a mid-year briefing on some of the preliminary results. And Thursday of this week, the county chair proposed her budget. And I'm not sure if the reference to it being defunded is that it's not in the county's chair's budget. So if that's a reference to it, I haven't had a chance yet. The budget's about a 7-inch tall document, and I'll be going through it all. But if she defunded it, obviously we're just at the start of our budget process. What that will entail, we'll have several months of budget hearings, in addition to hearing community feedback. We'll have an opportunity to hear about different programs, not just this program, but lots of other county programs. And for me, as going through my first budget cycle at the county, although I've been through lots of public budget processes at the school district, for me, always a key indicator is there's always trade-offs among programs in the public sector, because whether it's schools or human services, there always is more need than there is resources. And so one of the things I'll do as I'm going through the budget is really look at what programs have the largest impact, and on those communities that we're looking to provide the most support to. So from my lens, as we head into the budget process this year, I'll want to look at the Mother's Trust data and see what impact it has, and is that the most effective way for us to help that particular group of people, and also is that the most effective way for us to spend those resources. But we're just now beginning the budget process, so I think there's lots of opportunities for the community to weigh in, and I'm hoping to hear at least the mid-year report was promising, so I'll be interested in the year-end results from last year.
Thanks very much. And TJ Noddings, it's your turn, and your time starts now.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm a big fan of programs like this, of income guarantee programs. We've seen great success in cities like Seattle and San Francisco, giving folks a guaranteed $500 a month. And we know what they spend the money on. They spend it on housing and food and other essential needs like diapers, like formula, like the very basic needs they need to have a healthy life and to provide a healthy life for their children if there's a child in the household. And some of the things we've seen from those programs are that these are one of the cheapest ways for us to support and improve people's conditions. In Seattle, we saw when they had their guaranteed income program of $500 a month, they almost doubled employment rates among folks that were receiving it. They increased, for the folks receiving it, their other sources of income. It allowed them to work more and get more money, and also have more time to go and look for other jobs and other gigs as well. And it vastly increased the number of families that actually had a small amount of savings, that went from having $0 in savings to a small amount of savings, which lets them take part in other programs that can do savings matching. And this is one of those ways that people can climb out of poverty. So it's actually very cost effective for us to pursue programs like this, and we've seen great success with it. And as mentioned, we do other assistance programs like rent assistance. Rent assistance, it's a massive part of our supportive housing services spend. And if we want to come out of the situation in which all of these programs are needed, we need to reduce the cost of living. We need to reduce the cost of rent. And we need to reduce the cost of food, because that's where our funds are going. I work with clients all the time that are low income, trying to find housing. And if there's someone that is working or has Social Security income or disability income, we have to have hard conversations like, hey, you make about $1,100 a month. I can find housing for you, but it's going to take such a majority of your income just to stay housed that, you have your SNAP benefits, but outside of that, you're going to have an extremely low margin to live off of. And programs like this allow people to get into housing and still be able to meet their most basic needs. So I think that this is a really great way for us to direct, as the county responsible for providing services, to use funds to help uplift our lowest income folks and help them really change their material conditions for the future.
Thanks very much. Thanks to all the candidates for answering that question. We're moving on to question 4, which is our last question. So I'm gonna ask it, and then we'll go in order. So while the Joint Office of Homeless Services, or people, we say JOS here, but I hear people say JOS. Well, the Joint Office of Homeless Services has lowered barriers to entry and created a variety of shelter models. The estimated number of homeless people in Multnomah County has risen since the office's inception. If elected, how would you align the work of the whole county to prevent inflows into homelessness and decrease reliance on shelter services? And we're beginning with Margot Wheeler, and your time starts now.
I think the biggest thing, again, is accountability and transparency on what the joint office is currently spending on. We need to measure those outcomes and how we're servicing people, who those people are, and what those needs are. Multnomah County has not done a sufficient job capturing data on who they're serving, how effective they're serving that community, and also taking more statistics. Who is our homeless population? How is it affected over time? A point in time, one time a year is not enough data to understand what's going on. And with actions by the city of Portland and the county, the situation is very fluid. Different areas and communities are affected by different things week over week, and it changes. There needs to be more data collection, more accountability, and more visual transparency on what is happening in our community. We all notice when tents move into an area or whatnot, but it's so much deeper than that. What are these people's needs, and how do we meet them there? Right now, the joint office is not capturing that data sufficiently. They have substantial funding that they're not getting out of the door. I do credit them for not just doing gift cards and just bragging about the spend instead of the impact. I think that the notion of budgets and things needs to be tied more to impact to communities. It needs to be effective, because if we're spending those dollars on specific groups, there's other people in need that aren't being serviced. And we need to make sure that we're utilizing dollars in the most effective, efficient way so that we can help the most amount of people. As for the inflows, where the United States, individuals can come and go as they please, we need to react to the situation as it is day by day. It's not like we can close Oregon's borders, or although our court systems do buy bus tickets and fly people out, that is not an effective solution. We need to provide effective services for individuals, so that's behavioral health services, addiction services, housing services, and make sure that there's coordination of care for each individual, because each individual in need has their own unique set of needs. And if you're having a blanket profile to serve these communities, you're leaving out needs from these individuals, and you won't be.
Sorry, you're at time. Thank you so much, Margot. Kevin Fitz, it's now your turn, and your time starts now.
I could have gave her 20 seconds of my time if
I
she
appreciate
needed
it.
I was on the joint office. One thing I have, I appreciate these questions, but I wonder sometimes if the listeners have the literacy to understand when we refer to these things, the joint office, which is the city county conglomeration that started this project. I served on the joint office coordinating board, I think starting in 2017 for 5 years. And it's been said by a lot of other people, the dysfunction and the back and forth between the city and county made it very difficult to be effective. It's what I said first day when I become your county commissioner. What we're going to do is we're going to, if there is an eviction program, we're going to put a spotlight on it and put it on Broadway with a billboard. If you are facing eviction, please call us immediately. We have some, hopefully we would dedicate some funds to keep that from happening. I asked a friend of mine who works for one of the larger shelters, give me a guesstimate of how many people in Multnomah County currently lost their housing this week and are evicted. Does anybody know that? I have 2 residences, one my apartment to watch football and my partner's house. And I live in low-income housing. The challenges of people who are living so close to the bone and falling every day into houselessness and poverty is just awful. And we don't have the press, we don't have the consciousness as a culture and a society to really address these programs. And I'm very frightened what the next 4 to 8 years look like for for those living in poverty and close to houselessness. It's very scary. And I don't think we have effective leadership that's cooperative and collaborates with each other. I think that's a fundamental problem. Everybody's trying to get reelected or elected or jockey up the power chain. This is one of the hugest issues that we struggle with, people suffering without house and people falling into poverty or these challenges. So I'm done. Do I have 20 seconds left to give to Margo?
Thank you for that. No, we'll move on to the next candidate. Thank you very much, Kevin Fitz. And now Chris Henry, it is your turn and your time begins now.
Okay. Yeah, I think we are all one paycheck away from the streets a lot of times. And I think we need to take that into account. Like I said, when I started that I worked for this one company for 20 years. They were a 100-year company, Yellow Freight, and they closed their doors because they didn't, they wanted us to take more concessions, and the Teamsters said no. And I supported that. Otherwise, I was already living in my car because pandemic rent, they wanted it paid back. I was paying it back at $500 a month. They said they weren't going to increase my rent. They 30 or 3 weeks later, I received something in the mail, and it said, "Here's your new offer for a lease," and it was almost $500. So now I'm supposed to pay $3,000, and I was paying $2,000 and just making ends meet. And I just decided, okay, well, everything has to go into storage, and I'll pay back the debt that I owe over time. And anyhow, we're all basically one step from the street. And I lived in my car from November of 22 to November of 23, just recently. And a friend lent me a driveway to park in. It's an abandoned house, and I fixed it up a little bit and moved in. And he was just using it to store legal files. But how to keep people out, I don't know that I would want to. There's always going to be growth and population growth and people moving in, and we're going to need to accommodate for that need. I think Rocky Anderson, who ran for president probably 8 years ago, and he was mayor of Utah, of Salt Lake City, Utah, and they housed people. They found a way to do it. They did it. They did the upstream housing them, and it diverted people, and it took care of things before the downstream effect.
Thank you so much. We're at time. Thank you for your response. So, and now Megan Moyer, it's your turn and your time starts now.
Yeah, I think when we think about homelessness and the issues that Multnomah County is facing, I think it's really important to differentiate between different populations and where we're making improvement and where we have a long way to go. I do fundamentally think this is a housing affordability issue. Just based on research, like that is overwhelmingly cost of housing directly relates to percentage of homelessness. So if overall on a macro level, we have to address that. But there are subpopulations and there are different approaches that need to be taken in order to help those individuals find house in their houselessness. One, if we can prevent somebody from losing housing, 100%, that is the easiest, best option. Second, I think there are individuals who have become recently homeless due to an economic challenge. They are probably the easiest to transition into housing and are most likely to be successful if it's made affordable. Where we're going to have challenges, and I think we have experienced challenges, are people who have experienced homelessness for longer periods of time and have other real challenges to their ability to stay housed. And that can be untreated substance use disorder, mental illness, disability, and other issues. And I really think we are missing the mark with this particular population, not only are we not necessarily building the kind of housing that would be successful, I do support using single room occupancy with supports. I think that that is a very effective initial step from shelter to your first longer term residence. But it has to be with supports, and I am a big supporter of supportive housing, and I think that's an area we have done a quite poor job of addressing, is making sure, and a lot of that needs to be low or no barrier, because people struggle to address issues until they feel safe and secure in their hierarchy of needs. It's awfully difficult to address something that is not in that next 5 minutes. So I do believe in getting somebody safe and then wrapping.
I'm so sorry, Megan. Thank you so much for your response. We're at time. And now we're moving on to District 3, and we're beginning with TJ. So TJ Noddings, it's your turn, and your time starts now. Same question.
Yeah, thank you so much. These are the problems that I think about all the time and face every day working as a housing case manager. And I think our solutions, to Megan's point, they're shockingly simple. We need more housing vouchers. We need more permanently supportive housing. We need more sober housing. And we need to focus less on temporary shelters and more on moving people into homes that they can keep and have long term. If I'm looking at, say, the Homelessness Response Action Plan draft that was released recently, in terms of like which populations we're seeing influx into homelessness for that are dependable, it's folks coming out of incarceration. We need to give a lot more care to people that are being discharged from incarceration so they don't just get discharged immediately onto the street. We're seeing a lot of youth age out of foster care and immediately become homeless, and we need to give a lot of attention to that. And lastly, it is those folks that are facing eviction. Multnomah County has the highest eviction filing rate in the state. 90% of that is for non-payment of rent because they can't afford it, not because they're bad tenants. And we don't have any right to counsel here. Only about 5 to 8% of tenants in eviction court have representation versus 82% of their landlords. And when we look at right to counsel programs in New York, Philadelphia, Boston, elsewhere, we see that it vastly increases the number of tenants facing eviction that stay in their homes. It reduces the amount of debt that they owe, which keeps them housed longer term, and it reduces the number of tenants that have a second eviction in the future. So we absolutely need to provide eviction representation. What we saw with rent prices in Portland is that between 2020 and 2022, they went up 42%, just an ungodly amount of increase. And that's the pressure that everyone is feeling. And that's why so many folks really are one unplanned expense away from being forced onto the street. So we need to do more to keep people housed. That's why we need the rent assistance. But ultimately, to move out of just this status quo, we need to bring down the cost of housing. Megan's exactly right. We know that the number one indicator of growth in homelessness is the growth in housing costs. So right now, we need to be advocating as a county for the state to allow local rent control, because the 10% allowable annual increases are too much. Our wages don't go up 10% every single year to keep pace with our rent increases, and we need to stop that bleeding. So we need to focus on bringing down costs and funding more housing vouchers so that more people can move immediately into housing.
Excellent. Thanks so much. Commissioner Brim Edwards, it's now your turn, and your time starts now.
All right, so the most recent count showed that we have 11,153 people living on the streets. And we've created a very comprehensive expanded shelter strategy to move people from the streets to shelter and then give them a path to housing. Your question related directly though to the inflow. So we have 11,000 currently, but as we know, there's people as they move, some people move into housing, other people move into homelessness. And I think it's going to be really important that we focus on the big macro piece, which is really affordable housing. I was very supportive of the governor's work, and that she very squarely told the legislature this is going to be the priority of this session, and we're going to have housing production goals, because overall the amount of housing that was built over the last 2 decades really lagged behind what was needed. So we have a big catch up to do. So that's one thing. The county doesn't have that as its primary responsibility. That's the city and metro and the state. But the county can be a really important partner by providing services. We also may be able to give them a partial revenue stream to metro to be able to create some affordable housing. So that's one. And then, like Megan, I'm just gonna when I look at very specific populations, it's going to be really important that we increase access to mental health services. We know lots of people with lack of mental health services, they end up not being able to stay in their housing. So really providing that critical support. Same thing with, we know that people who have gone through treatment, a really important thing for them is to have a transition to recovery housing and sober housing. So the county did last year make a significant investment in that so that people aren't leaving treatment and then falling into homeless or being part of that inflow into the homeless population. So recovery, very specific types of housing is important. We also, another really specific type of housing that's important, which is creating inflows, is lots of people who leave medical settings. It's somewhat shocking, but they leave medical settings and just get discharged to the street. So having a smooth pathway and a transition to a place where they can stabilize. We're using motels and single room occupancies rooms to provide a place for people to stabilize and then transition into housing.
Great, that was perfect timing. Thank you. So that was all of our questions today, and we're going to move on to candidates' closing statements. We're flipping it this time, so we're starting in District 3. We're going to start TJ, and then we're going to go to District 1, and we'll go through. I'll just say your name when it's time for closing statements. You actually have 2.5 minutes for closing statements. So if I cut you off, A, I'm sorry, but B, you can follow back up on that if you want to. Again, this isn't a debate, so there's really no reason to kind of look back or do rebuttals. Just give your closing statements, please. And again, we're going to start with you, TJ Noddings, and your time begins now.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity. And I hope that for anyone watching, they think about how they're feeling about how the county has been doing for them. I talk to renters every day about the issues they're facing. And what I'm hearing more and more and more is that people just can't afford to live here in this region anymore. They're skipping meals, they're skipping medical bills so that they can keep meeting their rent. And they don't feel that the county is providing the support that they need, and they don't feel that we're on a path to ever getting out of this situation. And I agree. I think our Board of Commissioner needs more working class renters like myself there, folks that are have experience in direct services that work with our homeless population like myself, to keep our eye on the real solutions to this crisis, because I don't think that we face an insurmountable challenge when it comes to addressing the cost of living, when it comes to fixing our homelessness crisis. I think we actually can do it. We have the resources. We have more money than we ever planned for coming into us for our supportive housing services tax, and I don't think we're spending it in the right ways. So I would ask voters to really consider if they feel that the leadership that we've had is really bringing us out of the crisis that we're facing. So I think that my experience as a housing case manager, as a housing organizer, as a renter myself, really gives me some of the closest proximity you can have to the problems and solutions of these crises. And I think I have a much better vision for the county. You know, some of the things that didn't come up, but that I'd love to highlight are I think that the county needs to focus on building more permanently decommodified social housing. I think county should aim to eventually become the #1 provider of housing that can outcompete the private market, because we know that the private housing market is going to keep us where we are now every chance it can get, with folks unable to keep up with their rent. So if we're really going to solve this and be able to provide services and be able to have everyone in our county have happy, successful lives where they can focus on more than just surviving, but actually thriving, then we need to do more to allow them to have that base of safety. So I would ask that folks really consider whether we need a fresh perspective on the board. I think we do, and I'd love to be that perspective.
Thank you so much, TJ Noddings. Commissioner Brim Edwards, it's now your turn and your time starts now.
Well, I want to thank the Urban League for offering us this opportunity tonight. It's great to hear everybody else's ideas and perspectives. We haven't had this chance so far as a group. And I do think I'm the person who's to add the fresh perspective. I think you've seen that in the last 10 months. I have really tried to disrupt the status quo because I think the county has been on the wrong track. I've kept my focus on the biggest challenges facing the county, whether that was providing people paths from the streets to shelter, safety, basic services, and a path to housing. I focused on behavioral health issues and increasing access to mental health services, treatment, and recovery. And have also focused on neighborhood safety, which is a huge issue in District 3. We have started the county on its road to recovery, and there's a lot more work to do. I've served 10 months, and with another full 4-year term, I think we can get the county back on track so it's a safe, affordable, thriving community that we know and love, and which is why we all have chosen to live here. I do think next January, if I'm reelected, I'll be the most senior commissioner of the four districts. And I think now more than ever, the county needs effective, results-oriented leadership, which I will bring. I think I'll continue to ask the tough questions, which I've done. I'll use my voice to call out the county when it needs to do better. I'm committed to action, results, and holding myself and the county accountable for doing better by the people who live here. And that's why I've earned the support of a really broad and diverse cross-section of organizations and community leaders, from AFSCME Local 88, SEIU, the Home Builders Association, 3 Oregon governors, 3 members of Congress, and residents, and most importantly to me, residents and my neighbors in Southeast Portland. I've got a proven record of leadership, and I believe my commission service I'll continue to be an effective voice for East Portland. I'm never afraid to speak up for my neighbors, their needs, and their dreams and hopes for the future for them and for their families. I'm ready to continue to work to keep get Multnomah County back on track. And I hope that I've earned the support and endorsement from my first 10 months in the commission to continue my leadership. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Commissioner Brim Edwards. Now we're moving on to District 1, and we're going to begin with Margot Wheeler. So Margot Wheeler, it's now your turn to give your closing statement, and your time begins now.
Thank you. As a project manager for Multnomah County working in Treasury, I've had the ability and the opportunity to work across all the departments to provide assistance with a variety of things. I know operationally where the barriers are, where things aren't getting done, and I have a plan to overcome those. I don't have a learning curve. I've worked for the county just under 5 years. I've worked both in a department, in the budget department, and within the Department of County Management, which works across the county. I think that Multnomah County is severely lacking transparency, both in dollars spent and in outcomes of what they're doing. My focus will be on program performance. We need to make sure these programs are servicing the people that they need to, that they're intended to, and make sure we're eliminating waste. Because when we have fraud, waste, and high transaction costs, that's less dollars serving our community. That's unacceptable, and it's extremely inefficient. There's no reason for our government to be as unwieldy as it is for these straightforward issues. There also needs to be so much more coordination between the departments. They're very, very siloed, and there's no incentive to work together. Not only do the commissioners struggle to work together, the departments are very siloed, and Multnomah County as a whole needs to work together with all areas of its services to make sure we're providing a holistic approach to serve people where they're at and help them in the ways that they need to. I really want to make sure that operations are moving quickly, but also, again, that there is that transparency. The community needs to know what dollars are being spent on, and there needs to be ongoing communication with the public and the taxpayers. I'm running for Multnomah County because I care. I care about the people that I see suffering. I am frustrated by the waste and the inefficiencies that I see operationally within the county. And I see just infighting with leaders, both internally with Multnomah County and externally with the city of Portland and Metro. I want to take a pragmatic approach, much like I do in consulting, where we all want to provide services and have the greatest impact. And we need.
I'm so sorry. Thank you so much for your statement. Your time is up, Margot Wheeler, and now we're going to move on to Megan Moyer. It is your turn, and your time starts now.
Yeah, I'd like to conclude on some of the things we didn't get to talk to that I care a lot about and that the county provides. I think some of the things that it's really vital that Multnomah County continue to provide is after school programming through our Sun schools. I'm a big supporter of that. I really want to make sure that we are making sure that there are quality after school programs in all of our neighborhoods. And I really do appreciate the effort that's been made to have culturally specific options, but also the vision of some schools as being a hub for families and a way for families to connect with services. And I think that that's the heart of what Multnomah County Services is about. So I want to state my support for that. I am a supporter of access to early childhood care. Multnomah County has preschool for all. I would like to see some pretty significant changes to that program. I would like to move it to a voucher program, much like the state-run employment-related daycare, which is a program that I've worked with and advocated for years. I want to make sure that every family can benefit, not just people who work 9-to-5 schedules. I've worked a long time representing frontline workers in places like nursing homes, home care, hospitals, and other settings that don't work traditional set schedules, and finding quality childcare for your child if you can't fit a center schedule is really difficult. So I want to make sure that we're making that every family benefits from preschool for all, and that it's on a sliding scale so that working class families can see that benefit just as well as everybody else. And, last but not least, we really do need to care about safe communities. That is part of the role of Multnomah County, and making sure that the role of the county in parole, probation, and jail is one of rehabilitation and not a punitive approach, because people return to our communities, and we need to make sure that when people do return, they're able to be successful and thrive. And that really takes an investment in people who are coming out of our criminal justice system, and I support that. And those are important services that Multnomah County provides, and I hope you can support me for Multnomah County Commissioner.
Thanks very much, Megan Moyer. Now, Chris Henry, it is your turn and your time starts now.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm with TJ. I'm probably the working class, in District 1, and that's how I would probably define myself. I'm familiar with the services like SNAP and whatnot. I was on SNAP recently. I'll probably have to get back on. I was on the Oregon Health Plan. Like Megan, I support health or child care for all. I support a lot of other social programs, and I think I would be a working class voice in that. I believe, like TJ, that we need rent control so that people don't end up out on the street. We need solutions for people so that they are housed, and I think there are ways to bring that about and increase funding through a publicly owned Multnomah County bank. I think we should have things like Multnomah County public broadband for people. I think that we should have a public utility district that instead of PGE jacking up the rates 18%, and people have to choose between their medications, or having the heat on. I think that perhaps we should be looking at running a new public utility initiative to take over PGE as a PGE PUD or whatever. There are other places that I think we should be looking. In the homeless arena is people do need supports, and I think we can get them housing. I think that there are other areas that we should be addressing as well that are the county is capable of doing, but I think these things take time. So we need to keep that in mind also. They don't move, the wheels of the government don't move fast.
Great, thank you so much, Chris Henry. And now Kevin Fitz, it is your turn for your closing statement. Your time starts now.
Very good. My name is Kevin. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much for putting this on. I am running for county commissioner because I want to lead with the solutions that I've already applied out there. I am a customer of Multnomah County in many different ways. My recovery story is profound and remarkable, and most people do not come back from what I come back as a functional lobbyist, mental health clinician, and community activist. The biggest thing that concerns me, there are 270,000 people in Multnomah County that can barely afford their rent. Their income is less than $1,600 a month. They're on the Oregon Health Plan. We have a colossal problem every time an elected or a wannabe elected says the word treatment. All of a sudden something magical goes off in our mind about what that means and what the promise is. I implore every single one of you who's listening and running for office, unpack what that means. Treatment. You are being led down a murky, unclear path. Our treatment systems are not set up for individuals with severe mental health and extreme drug addiction. You are being led and fed. Let's build one of the train cars. We need an integrated system. And what we don't have, and what I've been doing all through the 90s and 2000s and 2020s, is building community systems. So when the governor and electeds can scream for more treatment beds and starve community, that is rotten. Because people you find treatment, but then you go to community to get healing. Community is on the run. Poor people have no voice. The press discounts individuals who are low income just because they're running for office. They don't listen to them. I'm an established lobbyist, a clinician, and a national expert in psychiatric rehabilitation. And most of you are being sold a bill of goods for a $10,000 a month treatment bed that leads to nowhere. There are 11,000 people on the street, and I don't think we're going to make a significant dent in any of that if some of the individuals become our next mayors or county commissioners. I'm very pleased and happy that for the most part, I am very impressed by most of the individuals that are running for elected office. I love their courage and their voice. I'm an advocate and an activist and a lobbyist, and I'm learning to be nerd speaking politician. I want to be your leader because
Kevin, thank you so much for your closing statement. Thank you all. I am sorry for anybody that we muted. I hate it. I try so hard to hide my cringe.
I just needed 2 more seconds.
I know you did it great. I am sorry. I really I appreciate everybody, and thank you all for sticking with the timing. I just want to absolutely thank you all for being here tonight. The forum is coming to an end. I want to thank our partners at LNS Captioning and at Open Signal. They're who airing this forum. I absolutely want to thank each and every one of you candidates for participating tonight and speaking to our community and speaking to our constituency and responding to our nerdy questions. I want to highlight the importance of voting. For anybody that's tuning in at home, the deadline to register to vote for the primary election is days away. It's on April 30th, and then the election day is May 21st. So this democracy really only works. The government can only be effective if you vote. So please get registered if you aren't, and please vote in this election. Kevin pointed out that Hope People's Voters packets came today. So if you got your voters information guide today, please read it. Please also remember that the Urban League of Portland is a nonprofit organization that relies upon donations and membership to be able to serve the community and bring you forums just like this. We really ask that you join our movement for justice and equity in Oregon by visiting our website at ulpdx.org. If you're able, I invite you to donate to the Urban League. Your support is an investment in the Black community and our robust wraparound programming that empowers communities and changes lives. This event was part of a series of virtual candidate forums for the primary election. So you can visit our website, ulpdx.org/2024 primary candidate forums to learn more about the series of events and catch any that you missed. You can catch them on YouTube, you can catch them on Facebook. If you need any help registering to vote or voting during the election season, staff at the Urban League are ready to talk with you right now. You can reach out via our website, via social media, or call us at 503-280-2600. So again, I want to thank all of the candidates for being here on behalf of myself and President Nikenge Harmon Johnson and our board of directors and all of our members. I really want to thank you all and our audience for joining us tonight. I'm signing off now. Good night. Thanks very much.
Thank you.